We're live. This is episode 2. Welcome to Every TED Talk. I'm really excited to have Brian Gordon here with me on my episode 2. Really excited for this. He's got a lot to tell us. For the people that are new to this channel, this is a channel dedicated for and to the software engineers. And so if you're an up and coming bootcamp grad or about to graduate from college, this is definitely the channel for you to get a lot of insights from currently working software engineers in that space. But really excited to have you, Brian. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot to talk about here. We have 1 hour.
Okay.
Just like last time on episode 1, I'll kind of pick your brains on like how you got to where you're at now. You have a pretty interesting story. I definitely know that for sure.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Brian and I went to the same boot camp in Denver, Colorado, in Flatiron School. We both did remote, but for fun, we played golf, and that's kind of how we got to know each other. So
Yeah,
really,
exactly.
that's how we kind of bonded over it. But
Right.
just to kind of give a brief introduction here, I'll have you, Brian, start out. Just tell me about your story, like who you are.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I don't even know where to begin. I'm pretending to be a software engineer at this point. That's really the short term. Long term, before getting into engineering, I've just kind of bounced around construction, bartending, so on and so forth for many years. And then kind of a very similar story that a lot of people went through recently. Had to pivot due to COVID. I was in actually a good position where I liked where I was at in life with a company that I really liked, and then COVID came around, and they said, "Yeah, we need to let you go." And at that point, my younger brother is also a software engineer. He actually just got his first six-figure salary at the same time I got laid off. So I kind of thought to myself, well, I guess what I'm doing isn't really future-proof, so I might as well go that direction. And so that was kind of that's just a very high level generalized overview of what kind of led me into becoming a software engineer. But yeah, that was kind of an interesting process to get to where I'm at now. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
speaking of which, where are you at now?
So right now I'm a junior engineer over at S&P Global.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what kind of stuff do you work with? What kind of technologies?
Yeah, so which was bizarre, as you know, obviously going through the same program where it was leaning on JavaScript, Ruby on Rails, actually just completely pivoted and looked at stuff in a complete operating system that I had no idea with. So right now, it's everything is Windows. Everything is I'm looking at .NET stack, so C Sharp. A lot of event architecture with Kafka, Kubernetes, some Helm chart deployment stuff. So yeah, it's just everything that I'd never even looked at or considered while going through bootcamp, like at all. I honestly didn't know that half of this, actually all of this stuff existed. So completely different direction than what I thought I was going to end up, which was something geared more towards React.
Do you enjoy what you do now compared to like what you learned in the boot camp, or
Oh
do you
man,
want to go back?
yeah, no, so it's kind of funny. Actually, when I got this job offer, I accepted it, and there was about a 3 week period between getting the job offer and then starting. And in that time, I was contacted by another company that I was really hopeful to work at. And like you said, golf is how we met and kind of really got to know
Mhm.
each other. And you know that golf is like my favorite thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and so this was a company, it's golfballs.com. And they contacted me and like, hey, we actually have a junior position open. We wonder if you want to do the take home challenge. And it was with, and they were using Node and React as well. And so I kind of in the back of my head, I was like, yeah, I'll accept this job at S&P Global for a little while, but I'm really gonna try to get on with the golfballs.com just so I could get back into a familiar tech stack or somewhere that kind of lent itself more towards the web development that I wanted to be in. And honestly, after the first week of being here at this new position, I decided I was like, wow, this is amazing. I don't want to be anywhere else than I am right now. So it was just, it was almost an immediate uh, just absolute joy doing what I'm doing every day. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
So speaking of which, I mean, I really want to know. Like, I still don't know either myself. Like, how did you get? Yeah, let's start with your coding bootcamp journey. Like, what made you go into a coding bootcamp instead of like self-taught or like college?
right. Yeah. So again, and I'm gonna lean on it, touch on it probably several times. My younger brother, you know, he um, So, funny story, and I'll get a little backstory to this. We were living in Portland at the time,
Mm,
back in 2016, and he and his girlfriend at the time were living in this two-bedroom apartment, and they kind of needed help. I moved out there. When I moved out there, we were both living in this two-bedroom apartment that had no furniture, and it was just us hanging out basically day to day. I think he was working at a dispensary. I got a job immediately working for Greenpeace just to pay bills. And during that time, he actually put himself. He was just doing Udemy courses, trying to teach himself how to code. He ended up kind of BSing his way into his first job doing that. But watching him go through all the panic of imposter syndrome and like having legitimate panic attacks, I was like,
yeah.
that's never. I never want to do that. I'm never going to do that. Um, but he then moved back to Colorado. He himself, he went through a different boot camp through Galvanized.
Mm,
Funny enough, actually, when he went through Galvanized, the director of Flatiron when we went, Kyle, was actually the guy who put together the program at Galvanized. So
that's
he
right.
went through Galvanized school, and when I was actually deciding to make that transition into what am I going to do with my life now that COVID came around and this industry is kind of failing, he kind of, you know, nudged me towards get into software engineering. He was like, and particularly go through a boot camp. That's what I did. And again, like I said, at that point, he had been in it for I think 3.5 years at that point, and he was making his first six-figure salary. And so it was kind of I was like, okay, yeah, well, you're making decent money, and I saw the start to finish of where you're at. So yeah, I think I could probably do that. And so it was really my brother kind of pushing me towards getting into coding, and particularly through a boot camp. Um, he had a lot of good things to say, a lot of interesting things to say about it as well that I completely agree with as far as the technical acumen that was developed through the boot camp wasn't necessary to really have a school like that or a background like that, but there were some parts of a boot camp that were just invaluable.
Mm,
And turns out he was actually right. Um, so really, again, it was a lot of a little bit of well, maybe not a lot, a little bit of research. The
mm,
one thing in particular about Flatiron that was appealing at the time, and I'm not sure that they do it anymore, but there was a money back guarantee. So
yeah.
it was kind of like if I don't come out successful, at least it didn't cost me anything except for a little bit of time. So
Sure.
yeah, that was more or less why I went that route.
That's so interesting. So I want to know more about like that time that you graduated to your first job because I
Yeah,
mean I'll be honest, like that was a like we've talked for a really long time and
yeah.
how you're still kind of looking and so like I want to know your story about that. What was the time period for that?
Yeah, so it was like 5 days short of an entire year. It was like 360 days
Okay.
from graduation to first job offer. Which in that time, I think I had my first interview almost immediately after graduation. So it was immediate devastation after devastation of going through these interviews and getting 2 3 rounds into these interviews feeling amazing about it and then just
Sure.
not ever passing it. So uh there's a lot to say about that, honestly. A lot of the reason was, as you know, again, we're going to refer to golf. So my time spent at Flatiron, I neglected, honestly. I didn't put 100% effort into the actual program while I was going there. I was
Yeah.
actually trying to, still pretend like I had a chance of being a professional golfer at some point, and I'm nowhere near good enough to do that. But it was still just kind of one of those like, don't give up on the goal. So I had the time, I had the money at that point to kind of pursue that. So I did. Didn't work out. Again, neglected studies with boot camp. But then I kind of geared down after in 2020. We met. I played a bunch of tournaments and realized, wow, I'm not good at golf. I really need I really need to focus on engineering, and so that's what I did. And I finally kind of got my stuff together and started really hitting it hard. And then, like I said, I graduated, and I felt my my confidence was pretty sky high at that point. The program itself, like I said, I kind of sabotaged myself a lot during that program. I kind of stayed away from the community, from everything that was good about the entire program, and I
Mhm.
really relied on any of the technical acumen and the stuff that I wanted to know. Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, I was like, my call just drop. Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah. So any of that stuff that I was trying to, I don't know, trying to get forward, it just I approached it with such half-hearted kind of a way. So anything technical, instead of like really gearing down with my table mates and talking to people like you and trying to figure stuff out and trying to learn how to pair program, which is hugely important, by the way. I think probably the most important thing and the best quality that a boot camp has to offer is just your peers, to actually,
Yeah.
yeah, to sit around with and to program with and to get into the thick of it with. Uh, so I missed out on doing all that kind of stuff by being an idiot and just kind of going my own way. And that's kind of what happened. It took me a year to actually get a job. I went through interview after interview after interview, and it was just like I said. I just kept failing apparently, and especially, and it was on interviews that I felt went really well a lot of the time.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was an entire year's process. And funny enough, I actually essentially gave up on not trying to get a job, but on the approach that I was taking. Um, yeah, so the approach that I was taking to begin with was that of like I started to really focus on kind of bleeding edge technology at the end
Mhm.
of boot camp when we had to choose what tech stack we actually wanted to approach. So I started
Mhm.
looking at stuff like GraphQL and Apollo Server Express and kind of doing those kinds of things. And it was great on paper, and I could mention that during interviews, and people were like, "Oh, well, that's amazing. That's brand new. That's great. Let's get you in." And then we do some kind of coding interview, and they're like, "All right, so let's do fundamentals." And Eh, what fundamental? What do you mean? I don't know vanilla JavaScript. I don't
Yeah.
know vanilla HTML. So it was just a lot of little stuff like that that kind of
Okay.
led me down a path of that's probably not the right approach. So yeah.
So speaking of which,
Mhm.
now that you have a job, like if you could do something differently, when you graduated boot camp, what would that advice be for people that are kind of in your footsteps that,
Yeah.
um, yeah, what would you have done differently to save yourself some time? Like, do you have a strategy to that?
You know, I would have approached it. I was so again, I used a little bit of too much ego. Honestly, I thought that maybe I was a better programmer than I actually was. I kept looking for jobs. Honestly, it was I was geared more towards looking to something that paid a little bit more.
Mm,
I wanted to come out the gate and I wanted to have that big, software engineer salary and six figures immediately and
yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And I really was just looking for probably more mid-level jobs. And again, I
Okay.
got a lot of interviews, and when I got take-home challenges, I did really well. But then when we actually go through the actual interview, I would get my confidence just shot just because I would just completely black out on stuff and blank all the fundamentals. So my approach, if I were to do it differently, I would be open to just getting any job, honestly, and in particular junior level jobs. And honestly, that was really what got me into this position. I think it popped up on my LinkedIn of a junior position was available. And like I said, I've kind of stayed away from even approaching those jobs or submitting applications, um, because I didn't want you know, the peasant salary of a junior engineer to begin with. And turns out it's not that at all, by the way. But yeah, once I did, and I kind of opened myself up to that, it was within my second interview for a junior that I actually got this position.
Okay.
So I would approach it a little bit more open-minded, not necessarily devote myself to one particular stack, and that was the other part of it that was really huge. Is I was looking for everything Node, anything Node is what I was applying to.
Yeah.
I really love working in Node. That was great, but then this was, like I said, completely random. I was just like, oh, it's a junior position. Maybe they'll be open to it. And sure enough, that's kind of how it came about.
Awesome. So you're
Yeah.
telling me that you were applying for mid-level jobs
Yeah.
initially, and you were able to get callbacks for those?
Yeah, I did. I actually went out and shortly after graduation, I got my first AWS certification. So I think
Oh, yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so that, I mean, that was actually, if I'm honest, that was relatively simple. It was about a
Mhm.
week's worth of studying and practice, and then taking the exam, which was 70 questions, and then I got the certification, and that was just a really good, resume builder. Just something to pad my resume a little bit. And I think a lot of people, a lot of places saw that, and they were like, "Oh, let's get this guy in here." And then maybe some of the projects that I worked on, like I said, I was using a lot of kind of that bleeding edge technology stuff. So they could see on the projects that I had on there that it was like, oh wow, this guy might be worth something. And then they talked to me and they were like, yeah, no, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
maybe not.
No,
So
that's a
yeah,
gamble, right?
yeah,
So I tell that to students all the time that are trying to like apply for jobs. Is like I always ask them like go for quality over quantity,
yeah, yeah,
just because of that happening where it's you can put that on your resume, but that means you can speak about it, right? And so if you can't
exactly.
have a conversation, then it gets
Right.
kind of a little bit.
Yeah, man, I got into that habit of kind of looking at a job that sounded interesting, looking at their tech stack, and then trying to cram whatever was on the job description right before
Mhm.
the interview, so that I could at least somewhat, talk about it. And that failed me so many times, where I just like be in the middle of the interview and just blanks. Like I have no idea what I'm doing. So yeah, it was pretty awful. Like I said, my approach was not the best.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and
But
honestly, I think it was the what really kind of got me to. I think what really got me through this interview, if I'm honest, was I was really humbled the interview before I had taken this one, and it was a junior position as well for a great company. I was really excited about it, and it was just supposed to be a 30-minute conversation with one of the senior engineers. And we got on the call, and he was like, "You know what? This is just supposed to be a conversation, but I don't like wasting time, so let's go ahead and open up a JavaScript file and do some coding." And I was like, "Oh my god!" I didn't prepare, and he gave me some algorithm that I just stumbled through. I couldn't get a console to print, and it was just awful. And at the end of it, he was like, "Yeah, so we're looking for a junior engineer, and you're not quite there." And I'm just like, "Wow, I just spent 2 years to not even be at a junior level. Awesome! I feel so good about myself." And so, like I said, I had gotten to the point where I was going to, and I gave up, and that really just meant I was going to rededicate myself to polishing the fundamentals that I had just kind of neglected. And so in that time, I was like, I really didn't care. So when I went through this interview, it wasn't going to make or break me, because I just took another a job at Einstein Bagels, and I was working there for a week as a baker and getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning and just like, what am I doing? How did I get here?
yeah,
So I really was just I was on it because I needed some cash flow, so it was good just to have a job.
yeah,
But that was kinda beneficial because, like I said, it helped me kinda step away from the ego, kinda humbled me a little bit, got me to the point of going, "Alright, I need to approach this in a way that is actually gonna benefit me. Instead of getting me to step D, I need to go through A, B, and C first." And so I kind of realigned my goals, and so when I went into that interview that actually got me the job, I was able to say and be honest and very transparent about what I didn't know at the time, and that I was willing to learn, that I was really excited to learn, but that I had a lot of gaps because of some things in life. And I think it was really just that comfort and that ease of a conversation that really got me into this position, because that was honestly the first interview I went through where my heart wasn't going a million miles an hour, because like I said, I wasn't really expecting anything, and it was just more for practice. So it didn't feel like a make or break me type of situation, which every interview before that, I definitely was like, this is it. This is going to change my life, and I need this. And nothing happened. So I think it was kind of, like I said, just getting back to square one and that foundation of, okay, this is just for the experience. And I don't know if that's good advice or not, but
no,
that's,
that's I think a absolutely good tip because, like you said, even for me, like I try to make myself as perfect as possible when I go to
right.
interviews, but I think
Yeah.
that is a mistake, at least for me. Like
Yeah.
I get more nervous, and then I'm just out of character.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
like
Yep.
you just, and then this, like you'll start coding, and I'll forget sometimes, like
Oh yeah.
like what I know like how to code this. I'm just too nervous to think about how to code, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I
But
can't tell you the amount of times I went through and, for example, FizzBuzz, that was a popular algorithm that we had to do. And I could do that, with eyes closed, no problem anymore. But then you get into an interview and they're like FizzBuzz, and I'm like, what? FizzBuzz? How do you even spell that? I don't even, yeah, it was, yeah, a
oh
lot of
man,
pressure, putting a lot of pressure on yourself to perform, excellently during an interview
Yeah,
it's devastating. So yeah, that
absolutely.
that really was kind of the I think the breakthrough was just taking it easy and allowing myself the opportunity to mess up and not feel just devastated about it. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
that's an incredible journey. I'm not gonna lie, man. Like kudos to you for like it's
thanks.
like I like we knew each other since
Yeah,
2020, and then
yeah,
for you to get here, even we're at the point of like giving up, you didn't, and like
yeah,
luck turned out, and also your perseverance and your like motivation, like it all
yeah,
came together at the
exactly.
right time, right place, and then wow,
Yeah,
now you're here, right?
right, exactly. And we're gonna lean heavy on luck with that one.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
I have
it
the
was luck.
worst luck, so I have
Yeah,
the worst luck. So,
yeah. Well,
um,
yeah, man, it was a journey. It was interesting. Like I said, it was the peaks and valleys that happened throughout that entire process
sure,
were just kind of astronomical and then abysmal at the same time. So it felt it was unreal. You know, I got the offer, accepted it verbally, and then had to wait 3 weeks. And I've never been more nervous in my life. You know, and then having to go through like contingent on background verification. And I'm like, I know myself, I know that that's fine, but I'm still like worrying that maybe last minute somebody stole my identity, and all of a sudden I'm not going to get it because of some random thing coming up. And it was just just that waiting game. And then once I finally had my first day, it was just like, oh, the relief,
yeah.
and just like the pure just elation was just was unbelievable. So it was yeah, I think that's a ticket. If I had to say anything, it's just perseverance. Really,
Mhm.
I think that was really key. Because like I said, there was watching you, and then I watched like last week's talk with Ryan as well, and same thing watching you and Ryan like kind of go through this program, and I don't want to. I'm not gonna say. Oh, well, I'm gonna make a lot of excuses during this conversation, so we might as well start now. But like I dropped out of high school at 16, and I started working construction, and I didn't have a college education, so I'd been out of the that realm of just learning for 20 years, going through this, and then got into it. And so I probably use that as an excuse too much, to be honest with you. But yeah, it was just kind of one of those things that it took me a while to get the wheels rolling. It was kind of like and I would explain it kind of like a steam engine of it took forever to start pulling my own weight. But then as soon as I finally figured out how to get past that first hill, it all came together, and it was just now I feel unstoppable,
That's awesome.
which I hope is the case
Yeah,
because I really like
no,
my job.
ab absolutely, and that's no, that's awesome because, like, from where you started, and
Mm,
that's why I wanted to bring you on is
yeah,
because where you started, like, you mentioned your story about, like, being a high school dropout,
mm,
um, and to where you are now, I mean, like, give yourself a pat on the back. I don't think you gave yourself enough credit is what I'm saying is, like, I mean, you have a career now
right,
where, the sky's the limit, right? And
right,
so
exactly,
I
exactly.
think that's incredible. I didn't even think I even know that part of your story. So I'm like, wow, that's
Is that right? Yeah,
like, yeah, no, I think that's like you take a lot of courage to get where you're at. I mean, you really like came from like like you really made the impossible possible, right?
yeah, and I wish I could take all the credit for it. Honestly,
You,
it was the support that I had, if I'm
yeah,
honest. Um, yeah, I was really lucky that every single one of my family members and friends were just crazy supportive the entire time. And like,
sure,
man, no, you got this, just keep your head up, you got this, like
yeah,
and it was really everybody pushing, including you, all the time, which was great. You're probably the only person that I connected with during that entire process, and certainly the only one that I've kept in contact with. But then I
yeah,
remember you always championing me during that, of like, man, you're so smart, you got this, like, man, don't worry about it, you're gonna get there, I believe in you. And so it was really having people around me that believed in me that helped me maintain, and that was really, I think, kind of what pushed me past the finish line of getting where I'm at. So that was, like I said, I can't take all the credit because, I mean, let's be honest, y- it's I mean, it's just like learning a new language, which
yeah,
isn't, it's not easy by any means, but it certainly isn't the hardest thing with enough dedication. Um, and so it was just dedication and and again a strong supporting cast and really anything is possible. So
yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, you're a true example of like no matter
rags
how
to
little,
riches.
yeah. Really, yeah, no matter how low in life you can
Yeah,
get, like, you have to have the right determination,
right.
and you've proven yourself for that. And to be honest, I don't think I did much. Like, I just was in the background and just feel like what I say really, like, I mean, I appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Like,
Well, yeah.
uh,
Well, it takes people not knowing how how instrumental they are in somebody else's life to
yeah,
to really mean something to people. And like I said, that is definitely the case. It takes people believing in you beyond yourself. I mean, obviously, it's the belief in self to be able to get up every day and to do it. But without that, I would have given up so many times. During the journey, it would just been like, yeah, I'll go back to what's easy.
yeah,
I can't do this. So like I said, it was hugely. Uh, I guess mostly because of the people around me that kind of kept me. Yeah, I guess I wanted to prove to them as well that their belief wasn't misplaced. So that was part of it too. Unfortunately, a little bit of ego in that, but it still was. I guess it worked. So
yeah.
I won't complain now.
So speaking of which, I mean, now that I mean, congratulations. Like, you're two
Thanks, man.
months into your job now, right?
Yeah,
And so you're
yeah,
just really getting started here, which
right.
is amazing.
Hmm.
Like, where do you like? Do you have any like future aspirations? Like, I know we talked about like just the creation of, like, even for you, like creating your own app and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Like, are you doing anything right now to like kind of cultivate that a little bit?
Every once in a while, and I've consistently dedicated an hour a day to continuing what we were kind of gearing towards. Which right now, like I said, is it's a lot of just building APIs. I kind of fell in love with just doing API kind of back end work, kind of
Mhm.
data heavy stuff. I really had I don't know. I guess I was probably better at front end first immediately, just because the graphical interfaces of everything is just you get to see it, so it's a little bit easier. So when you're pixel pushing, it's just fun because you get to see a
Yeah,
result immediately,
very,
instead of a red warning of like, oh, how do I track down this warning now? There's no good documentation on it. But
yeah,
as far as what in the future, I haven't really thought about it because again, this is all brand new territory.
mhm,
Even the operating system, I bought a Mac for our boot camp, and that's all I ever programmed on. And I hadn't used a computer with Windows on it for years prior to that. And so now they set me up with a ThinkPad, and so I'm putzing around Windows and learning Linux and Ubuntu and that kind of stuff, and just stuff
yeah,
I had no idea about. And I honestly still don't really know. I mean, C sharp, I guess, is used a lot in like video game kind of stuff. I don't really know. And then, kind of gigantic organization, which is like where I'm at. So kind of a lot of relic stuff. So I have no idea as far as this tech stack is concerned. But right now, I'm kind of leaning heavy on the like event driven architecture is kind of the stuff
oh,
that I'm looking at right now, which is gonna not happen for too much longer. But that is really fascinating, honestly.
okay,
Yeah, just kind of still figuring out how everything fits together. You know.
that's awesome.
Um,
So sounds like completely new tech stack
yeah,
from what you hear from
yeah,
Flatiron. So obviously, like, you're remote right now.
yeah.
Like, how are you, like, because this is all new stuff? Like, how are
Mhm.
you learning right now? Are you getting paired up with someone? Like, what is
Yeah,
the onboarding process for you over there right now?
right. So that's huge. That has been a savior, honestly. So the first week was a lot of just like, here's some documentation, go read and familiarize yourself, and here's some YouTube tutorials. Go check this stuff out. Um, and that's all great doing that once, but I'm definitely that type. I need to build and burn several times before I have any idea of what I'm doing. And when I first started, I was actually the first junior on this team. It was a brand new
Oh,
team in the organization. So I had the principal. He brought me on, and then another junior joined a week after that, and
mhm,
then one joined a month after the two of us were there.
mhm.
And so getting together when the other junior started, he and I started pair programming all the time. And this wasn't. I don't know if I don't want to explain his story because I'm not sure. I'll probably get it wrong. But I think this was his wasn't hi- or is his first job, but he interned at college previous to this, so he had some experience. And man, he held my hand for the first week, and we would just walked through everything. And I was reluctant to drive a lot of times because I'm sitting there shaking. I'm like, oh, I type slow. It's going to take us too long. I'll just watch. So it was a lot of finally him being like, no, man, you drive, you take over. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to get it done.
Mhm.
And then even the new junior that we brought on, yeah, so we all jump on quite often. I don't go, I think I've gone maybe one day out of the 60 now that I've been there where I had just coded just by myself the entire day. So yeah, that is the huge thing. And that is the thing that if I had any regrets or hindsight about boot camp that I would have done differently is take the opportunity to pair program, and so that is really what got me comfortable because it was like, there's that adage of, I guess maybe it's not an adage, but it's, no, it's not an adage at all thinking about it. But really, I struggle a lot, or I did, with asking questions because I didn't want to, well, yeah, I didn't want to feel dumb, essentially,
Mhm.
you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, and in hindsight, and doing this now, you get to realize that when you ask a question, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping the person who has to explain it. Because
Sure.
somebody having to explain an answer or a solution to somebody just cements that more in their head as well. And
Mhm.
and that's the one thing that I've really noticed here at this company. There's just so many people who are so willing to help out, and I think, a large part of it is that they want to just kind of solidify that they actually know what they're talking about as well. Yeah, so it has been the pair programming really that has just, helped me get from knowing nothing about this to actually being able to write my own bash scripts and to make some YAML templates and stuff that I've never even looked at, where it's just, comfortable enough to not feel like I'm going to lose my job tomorrow. But yeah, it's been great. Pair programming, I think, and honestly, the one day that I didn't program with anybody was lonely. It was just like, oh, I miss people.
Sure.
I'd rather be, talking to somebody, even if it's not about programming, being on, a video call at the same time while working on different stuff.
Yeah.
Same thing, because then you just, parking lot ideas, rubber duck it, and throw it around, and come up with a solution that you just like randomly didn't even think of, and like, oh my god, dude, yes, thank you so much. Like that,
Yeah.
been struggling with that for days. So it's a, yeah, I think that's been the biggest push of learning and getting familiar with what I'm doing is just the pair programming.
Oh, that's awesome. So,
Yeah,
speaking of which,
yeah,
I know everyone's kind of like, they want to be remote, right? Like that's the
yeah,
whole like new hot thing is like working able to work remote.
right,
I so I'm going to tell you my opinion.
yeah,
The first junior. So all these junior developers want to start out remote, but I always recommend if you can start out in person. I started in person for my first job, and I'm glad I did. I feel like the acceleration of learning was quicker, and I actually like working in person, but
yeah,
obviously I'm remote now. But I wanted to know what your opinion is. Like,
yeah.
what do you have for preference?
Honestly, I really appreciate the hybrid aspect of it. My first couple weeks it was go to the office, and we had the option of we could go to the office or not, and it was really nice. Just one, because the environment at the office was that I couldn't really distract myself with stuff at home. But then, yeah, being able to walk over to somebody who is like sitting there, right there, is so much easier. But yeah, I think that I really, really like having the option to go in to the office.
Mhm.
It's nice to be able to take off for a little while to go, work from home. But like I said, it was, what is that when we were going through Flatiron? It's, if you're in your comfort zone, you're not learning, right? And you have to just get out of your
Um,
comfort zone. I feel like being at home just is just a comfort zone, right? And so actually going to the office and having to be there, um, I think that was, I don't know, I really like it, if I'm honest. But I like I said, the hybrid opportunity. Because if I can take a week here, a week there to go, go to a different state, do whatever. I mean, that would be awesome. But at the same time, getting back together with everybody from the office is, you know, uh, like I said, that was what I had to do first, and that's been great. So,
Yeah. No, I agree. Now that I'm in remote, I do like the freedom of being able to
mhm,
work wherever I want.
yeah,
Speaking of which, I'll be in Portland, Seattle next
nice,
week. So if you have any good
nice.
recommendations, let me know.
I have probably too many, but yeah,
I heard so many good things about Portland. Like,
yeah, it's
I
amazing.
heard Seattle's great, but like Portland is like I'm excited more about that. So
Yeah, I was the opposite. My first experience with Pacific Northwest was Seattle when I was like
okay,
15, and I just fell in love because I actually kind of like rainy, gloomy weather, and so it was plenty of that, and everything was just so lush and green,
yeah,
and so like I was like, oh, Pacific Northwest, and so I always had this idea I was going to move to Seattle. I ended up moving out to Portland, and I was like, this is so much better. And you go and you
Yeah.
walk through these various different parks and like places like where they filmed Jurassic Park, and you have these ferns that are just like gigantic, and everything is just so green, and the moss. There's rosemary growing on every corner. So
Yeah.
it's just like it. Portland's a very special place. I loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm going to have to get in the loop in terms of, I only have 2 days, so I need to make
Oh
them
man.
the last 2 days.
Yeah.
That's gonna be
Yeah. I
tough.
mean,
I'll be
this.
back.
Yeah. Well, definitely go back then, because 2 days is not enough to.
Really?
Oh
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna be great, but yeah, you need I would say a good solid week
Oh, wow.
to really get, because I mean there's just such variety too, depending on what you want to do, because there's the city obviously, which is fun, like the Alberta district, or even Hawthorne, which is kind of near where I lived, and awesome places. But then there are parts, like I said, that you get on the outskirts, and like Kelly's Point, where you have the Columbia River intersecting with the Willamette, and where you can actually see like the difference in the watercolor temperature and current, and just places like that, and just some really gorgeous places like. And it's, I guess it's more Oregon than it is Portland, but like places like Depot Bay, where you can go whale watching, and Haystack Rock,
Cool.
which is really awesome. So I would say maybe not necessarily Portland, but give yourself a week to spend,
Okay.
exploring Oregon. That's
Wow.
it's a great out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be doing some salmon fishing too. So I don't know if
Oh
you love,
man.
but
Oh,
I,
okay. Well, 2 days might be enough if that's what you're gonna do, because that's
I know.
awesome, dude. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm excited. So I'll let
Yeah.
you know how it goes. But
Yeah. Deal.
it's going to be a pretty fun trip going on. But
Yeah. I believe it.
um, yeah, I wanted to ask you to kind of like wrap up the conversation here about. So a lot of the students I've talked with, they struggle with the idea. There's a lot more people actually that I'm sure you know, but uh, don't get jobs until maybe 6 or 1 year after, and you felt it like with the
Yeah.
experience, like it might be demotivating.
Hmm.
What kind of advice do you have for those kind of people that are kind of going through that now that you did?
Yeah.
What kind of advice can you give? Because I know you're like you persevered for like
Yeah.
literally the lowest point, and then you're at the
Yeah.
top here.
Yeah.
So what's your like? Yeah, what can you give? Sure.
Ooh. Yeah. It's tough. Um. I mean, obviously, just I mean, the biggest thing is perseverance. I would say consistently polish your fundamentals. That's one big thing. I think that was really, killing me when I was going out there, was I couldn't get through a coding interview really well, because I just would get so, I don't know, just so shaken by the idea of having to code in front of somebody. So it was really about making sure that I don't know, I didn't need to be perfect for the interview, but just making sure that I could confidently speak about some topic. And ideally, as a junior, um, that's I will say, I think what got me past the first round the majority of the time was admitting that I didn't know things.
Hmm.
That was probably the most common thing that people were telling me, was that like, oh, I really appreciate the fact that you're a junior, but that you were,
Hmm.
able to admit that you didn't know stuff. That's what we want to hear from juniors, because what we don't want is somebody who's going to pretend like they know, and then pull something out of their butt, and just be completely wrong about it. So I think, again, just being open to the position that you're actually in as a programmer, and being open to the idea of just getting a job, just getting your foot in anywhere. So polishing fundamentals, perseverance, and motivation to continue to work on passion projects. That was one thing I definitely did after a while there, is I started to really get interested in Web3 and blockchain. So I actually ended up doing several courses, and I made some digital wallets, and actually was making transactions through MetaMask, and actually getting them published on the blockchain with Ethereum, which is pretty cool. And so it was stuff that I was like, oh, this is really interesting. But doing stuff like that kept me motivated to actually continue to code every day. It wasn't just like, oh, I need to learn this algorithm, or learn the time and space complexity of this. A lot of the FANG interviews prep stuff that I did along the way, and getting immersed in all the cloud stuff, which is beneficial, but it really doesn't settle if you're not excited about it. You know,
Hmm.
so continue to do stuff that excites you. Continue to put yourself out there, and to be willing to fail, I think, is huge. Um, and again, just know that there is a place for you. Because I think a, a great juxtaposition between your first conversation with Ryan and where I'm at now is like that's kind of the spectrum. It was like you kind of have you know persons like you or Ryan who were able to just kind of continue with your education within engineering, albeit a different field, but and kind of continue that trajectory to someone like me, where it's like complete opposite of I probably you know on paper wouldn't think I would have actually made it. But that was something I think that the Flatiron was good about telling us and kind of letting us know that there is a place for every type of programmer out there, and it's just a matter of eventually, as long as you persist, you'll find that place, and you'll find a place, and the company will be happy they found you as well. So just keep that in mind that eventually it is going to work out, but it's not going to be handed to you. So you're going to have to actually dedicate yourself, put in the effort, and and good things will come.
That's a good way. I actually didn't hear about that. That's actually awesome that you said that. Like, there's a place for everyone,
Yeah,
but like you mentioned, it takes time, right?
yeah, it does exactly.
Not going to hand it to you.
Right,
That and like that's what I tell everyone is that Rome, just like how Rome wasn't built in a day,
exactly.
your path as a career
Right.
as a software engineer, right? So
Yeah, and let me touch on that too. When I mentioned your and Ryan's journey, it's not as though it's like, oh, it wasn't any effort, because that was effort from years ago that you put into your own life and developing yourself and your skills. It just so happened that that transitioned and kept going because of the effort that you continually put into it. Um, so yeah, again, it's not easy, and if it was easy, it probably wouldn't be worth it. Um, so it's just a matter of persisting and putting in as much effort as you could possibly give without driving yourself insane. Because that's also pretty easy to do. I did that for a little bit too. That whole 12 to
we're
14 hours a day just staring at stuff and
uh,
not
it's
no diffuse state, no getting off the computer and letting stuff settle. But yeah, I did, and I do want to touch on that too. Ryan had mentioned something in that conversation previously about don't get into the YouTube tutorial trap,
yeah,
and I completely agree with that. To the extent that it's all right to do some tutorials on some cool stuff, but make sure you burn and build and get to the point where you can do it on your own. That was huge too, because again, it really is just being able to confidently speak about things.
yeah. No, I
Yeah,
agree, 100%.
and so yeah, being able to do that, and then yeah, and really just being excited to learn and excited to you know to step outside of what's comfortable. And again, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here, because like I said, it was nothing, nowhere near anywhere I thought that I would be. The tech
Yeah,
stack, yeah. Again, even operating system, it was, so
I
it
mean,
was
you
just
had an incredible journey. I mean, I'm not gonna lie,
has been fun.
you had an incredible journey. Like compared to like a lot of people that I've seen, like you've broken a lot of boundaries, man. Like you really
Well,
did.
oh,
Think about
thank I appreciate that. Yeah, it was.
no, I really did. Like you really came from like starting from a just total, complete random field or like I mean your story. I mean like yeah, in that environment, it's really tough. But you essentially dug started from the core and then worked your way to the top now. And look at you, you're a
Yeah,
software engineer. I mean,
right.
like you're
Yeah,
working with, like all these advanced technologies like Kubernetes. I mean,
right.
that's that's an incredible story, man. And so that's why
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, this is an incredible feat what you've done. Like, I'm
well, I
sure these are
appreciate
the
that. Yeah,
proudest moments, I think.
I didn't catch that last part. It broke up.
Oh, I'm saying this is probably one of your proudest moments,
Oh,
honestly.
oh, by far. And it's not just that it's my proudest, but I'll tell you what, I've never felt like this in my life. Honestly, all the different, and I've had some amazing careers throughout my kind of odd journey in life.
Mhm.
And this by far is it's the only time I've ever actually gotten done with work and I've been excited and happy about the following day, like immediately when work is over. You know what I mean? It is really the first time where I've just like I feel you know, like at home, at peace about it, where it's just like, oh my god, this is amazing. Because essentially, all I'm doing now is I'm learning, and just getting paid to learn,
Yeah.
which is like it's just the most amazing thing. So yeah, it's well worth it, and that's why people, and if you're in that position and haven't gotten that job yet, just it's worth it in the end to persevere, and again, just to lean on people when you need to. That was a big thing too. As if it wasn't for the fellow students championing me and the instructors cheering me on and actually offering help even off hours, it is about you know relying, and I don't know, and that's the thing that's amazing about it too, that I didn't actually believe when we were going through Flatiron, and people saying, oh, ask questions and other engineers are going to be happy to help. I was kind of
Mhm.
like, yeah, people are going to be busy. And no, it's not. Like every time I've had a question, I've had people drop in the middle of what they were doing to just come help me out. Because everybody just really wants to see you succeed, not just as a fellow employee and as a team member, but just as an individual. It's an amazing industry, and I think the great thing about Flatiron when we went is they had the love bubble, which was a hard pill to swallow for me because I'm not a very I don't know, sociable person
Yeah.
when I don't need to be. So the idea of like leaning on people and getting to know people and really inviting people in was just like foreign to me. I was like, nah, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do that. But man, it's that has like been one of the things that I've taken from Flatiron with me and implemented and tried to help implement that with the team. And we have such a good team. The culture on our team is just ridiculous. It's amazing, and we hear all the time, honestly, about how awesome our team is compared to some of the other teams in the organization.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
really, that's why I think that we're all doing so well right now, is because we do have that kind of transparency, and we're able to like really be like, no, come on, like we got this, and what are you working on? Let's jump on the call, let's do this. And so yeah, it's the journey is great, and it feels good when you get there, but it's like I said, it's I don't know, it's really hard to describe how
Yeah.
amazing it really is. So it's just keep your head up, because you'll get there eventually.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You told a lot of great points there.
I
No,
hope
like
so. Good God.
no, it really does. Like, I'm so glad I brought you on because every person I bring on has different perspectives. I have different perspectives on how to navigate this career path, but
Yeah.
depending on how you got to where you're at is going to be completely unique to you. And then
Right.
you especially had a lot of perseverance, definitely coming from where you started and to where you're now. That's truly amazing. And so I really do hope that a lot of the students that are going to be watching this in the future really look up to you as like someone that they can look up to and say like, hey, like Brian Gordon did it, and then so like anything like he really broke a lot of boundaries, and so I really hope that they see you as an inspiration, and yeah, they really will, and
Yeah,
so
yeah. I
you really
appreciate
need to
that,
give
man.
yourself a lot of credit. But
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know if I'll give myself that much credit, but
you
if at
do.
least they can look at me, at least they can look at me and say, "Look, anybody can do it," then that's
Yeah,
that's perfectly acceptable. Like if you can look at me
yeah.
and say, "Oh man, this idiot can do it," yeah, so can I. Absolutely, use that as your force behind you to get you motivated to do it. But yeah, man, it's yeah, I think it's worth it, and
Yeah,
that's just yeah. Like I said, I would. There's nowhere I'd rather be in my life right now. So it's
yeah.
yeah, it's absolutely worth it to just maintain.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Well, I want to say, yeah, that's a wrap for this episode of Every Tech
Awesome, man.
Talk.
Yeah,
Brian Gordon. Brian, I appreciate you joining this call again. This is
man. Tony,
fantastic.
this has been great. It's great.
Yeah, this was so fun.
Yeah,
But for the people that are watching and also like just want to continue to watch, definitely subscribe to this channel. We're going to try and have one every single week, and then bring on another new guest from a different walk of life. But yeah, until then, next time. So yeah, I'm going to close this out. See ya.
awesome. Thanks, Tony. It's great.